Sport has the power to build strength and confidence. Heal, inspire, and bring communities together. This is Level Playing Field.
Hello and welcome to Level Playing Field. I'm your host, Greg Westlake. On today's show, we have an amazing lineup, which includes meeting the folks from Active Together, who are reaping the benefits of an active lifestyle. But first, we head to the home of Canada's Para Triathlon team in Victoria, British Columbia. There are a lot of moving parts to a para triathlon, but for blind and partially sighted athletes, it also involves being paired with a sighted guide for all three stages of the race. How does it work? Let's find out.
Hand me the tether. You got your end?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Para triathlete John Dunkerley and his guide James Cook often begin their training day with a run. James's dog Lars in tow. To be winners, this team can be nothing less than flawless. From the perfect run, to the perfect swim, to the perfect ride.
Coast.
John and James are well versed in each other's movements. This familiarity has developed with many hours of intense training.
Now that we've been together for 3 years, I know when we're out there what John needs to motivate him. On race day, especially at a games level and at a world championship level, that 1% matters, and I think that's something that we have over everybody else.
John was on the Canadian national track team for 8 years, competing in 2 Paralympic Games. He retired from running in 2015, but the drive to compete still lingered. The new sport of para-triathlon was calling his name.
I got involved in triathlon back in 2016. I did a triathlon in Ottawa in September of that year. Did not go well, but after that triathlon, I was like, I know I could do way better at that if I actually put some time and effort into training for one.
Meanwhile, James had been competing as a professional triathlete. Through the racing circuit, he was acquainted with Carolyn Murray, head coach for the para-triathlon national team.
Really, it was the personality that James has that I thought was the best fit, because it is a unique role to be a guide. It's something that is quite demanding. It's rewarding, but it also is much more selfless than a typical athlete who's racing for themselves. I've known James for quite a long time and thought that he would be a really good fit and open to that environment, and he's such a positive person, so he really contributes in that way. And of course, he's a great athlete as well, and that's an important piece, so I thought he'd be a really good fit for John.
Though James had plenty of experience in the sport, he was not experienced at guiding. There was a learning curve.
I had never been on a tandem bike before, so I borrowed one and recruited my friends to come around and trust me to guide them around on a tandem bike. Easy. Easy.
A few weeks later, John and James met up for their first race, and it just clicked.
I'd say it didn't take us that long, you know? I don't remember where I was like, oh, like, we're good now.
While they may be attached at the hip during races, when they are in the gym training, they work separately. Whether it's riding on the stationary, lifting weights, or tossing medicine balls, the two are constantly pushing each other to reach their full potential.
I like knowing that I'm making James work hard.
As the guide, I cannot be a limiting factor, so I always have to be a little bit faster than John in all 3 disciplines, because as soon as our abilities match, I'm no longer the best guide for the team.
It definitely motivates me to make him hurt.
It's clear these two are close, but when you spend that much time with someone, there's bound to be some friction.
On the run, I get very angry, so I'm tired, and James is like jabbering in my ear, and like I don't, that's all I need is him jabbering at me. So like, James knows it's all in heated battle, and like it's nothing personal. It's just, I get agitated.
Like John, para triathlete Jessica Tuomela lives and trains full-time in Victoria. Most mornings, you can find her lifting weights in the fitness center at the Pacific Institute for Sport Excellence. Jessica is also no stranger to the Paralympics. As a para swimmer, she competed in 3 games and has the silver medal to prove it. After retiring from swimming, she thought her days of competing were behind her, until she overheard some athletes talking.
They're like, yeah, we're triathletes. I'm like, what's that? And so they explained, like, oh, we swim, bike, run. I'm like, oh man, that is so cool. And I kind of thought, well, maybe someday I'll get into that.
And so she jumped in with both feet. Unlike John and James, who work closely in all facets of training, Jessica does most of her preparation without her race guide, Marianne Hogan. And while it hasn't hampered their success on the World Triathlon circuit, Marianne, living halfway across the country in Montreal, does present some unique challenges.
Because she's there and I'm here, we've had to become really creative in finding people for me to train with, and I've had so many people step in and donate their time.
One of those volunteers is Andrew Neal. The pair have been tandem cycling together for only a few months, but thanks to Jessica, he already recognizes the impact a guide can make.
You feel part of a team, and that's fun. It's just really inspiring to see how hard she works, and just being able to help somebody fulfill one part of it, it's an honor.
Ryan Barber shares that same honor as one of Jessica's volunteer running guides.
It's really cool to be part of this team.
Come on.
Yeah. Jess is full of life. She's super bubbly. Like I was really surprised when I first met her, and she's just beaming, just super happy person. Easy to run with.
5, 4, 3, 2.
At the pool, Jessica trains with volunteer swimming guide Carmen McNamara. They actually go back a few years.
I got to know Jess because we were training with the same spin class, so we became friends, and then she was looking for someone to help her with her open water swimming, and I'm always looking for people to open water swim with because it's not an activity you want to do by yourself, so it worked out really well for us to both get our training in.
Jessica enjoys working with all her guides and is incredibly grateful for their time. But because they're volunteers, the faces often change. Not only does Jessica need to find and train new folks, sometimes it's hard to say goodbye.
I think when someone does move on, the harder part for me is like I tend to form really strong connections with people. For me, the hardest part isn't really changing guides, it's like losing that connection or that connection changing.
Head coach of the Para Triathlete team, Carolyn Murray, is responsible for matching athletes and guides. She says scheduling conflicts makes it tough to get volunteers, but it's often the act of guiding itself that discourages people from getting involved.
Good, relax your shoulders. You know, I guide Jessica regularly and I enjoy it, I love to do it, but you are someone else's eyes and that's an odd concept, and so there's a lot of pressure that goes along with that, and it's not for everyone. I underestimated how challenging it would be because it's a big ask.
Like, think about being a deer.
Do deers have knees?
Oh, let's just pretend they can bend their knees.
They're not paid. You know, they often have to pick me up. There's a lot of logistics that go into training with a blind athlete.
Both Jessica and John have seen huge gains in their performances since they joined the national team. They're also painfully aware that the competition is getting fierce.
There are massive wait lists for these races, so to get a spot on the start line is not easy.
I didn't remember it being this hard. Coming from having only trained in one sport and having to balance 3 now, this is craziness.
It just removes any chance of you thinking that you can just walk onto a team, because that's just not going to happen. You know, you got to put the work in for sure.
Stay tuned for more Level Playing Field. Welcome back to Level Playing Field.
Sport Explained, Para Triathlon. Para Triathlon is a relatively new sport that was introduced to the Paralympics in 2016 at the Rio Games. Combining swimming, cycling and running into one continuous race, athletes compete in the appropriate classification to finish all three portions in the fastest time. The race begins with a 750-meter open water swim. It then transitions to a 20-kilometer cycle on the road and concludes with a 5-kilometer road run to the finish line. There are three main categories for para triathlon: wheelchair users, non-wheelchair users, and visually impaired athletes. These categories are divided further depending on gender and disability classification. Athletes in wheelchairs use a recumbent hand cycle to race in the cycling portion, and a racing chair for the running portion. Non-wheelchair athletes use a traditional stand-up bike for the cycling portion, and use prosthetic limbs or other assistive devices in the running portion of the race. Visually impaired triathletes compete with a guide during all three portions of the race. While running, the guide and the athlete hold a tether in one hand, keeping them side by side. In the swim portion, the athletes are attached by a tether to the upper leg, with the guide slightly ahead and to the side of the athlete. The duo use a tandem bike for the cycling portion, with the guide on the front pedaling as the pilot and the visually impaired athlete on the back pedaling as the engine. Now you're all set to take the plunge and hit the road.
Welcome back. I'm Greg Westlake. Para triathletes John Dunkerley and Jessica Tuomela have made huge strides since coming out of retirement to compete in the sport 4 short years ago. While they're both getting results, they're employing some different methods to get to where they want to be.
And before you start, lean into it. Okay, so you guys can jog over to the corner. This is 20 meters away, Jess.
What we do is so hard. All the athletes, doesn't matter what sport you're in, it's so hard what we're doing.
Head coach of the Canadian Para Triathlon national team, Carolyn Murray, agrees.
Athletes have to be resilient. There's so many challenges that come across every single day, starting with how can you find solutions as opposed to what's the problem. And everyone that I'm working with absolutely has that mindset, and that makes my job easy.
Okay, a little quicker.
Jessica trains with multiple guides, which some may view as a drawback, but she views it as a major advantage.
It's learning to be adaptable and still being strong at the same time. And that's what triathlon is all about, because nothing ever goes as planned in a triathlon race, ever. And so you have to plan as best you can, and then you need to be able to be flexible.
John spends much more time with his race guide, James Cook. This makes for consistent training, but also opens the partners up for confrontation. For John and James, communication is key.
Getting things out in the open when they happen, get things dealt with right away.
Both John and I have been very good about that. We do spend a lot of time together. Sometimes we spend a month living in the same hotel room together. And if those frustrations that do come out happen, it's just communicate, hey, I'm frustrated by this, and this is why.
As long as you do that and realize that it's not personal, it's just for the better of the team. If you can function like that, it just makes things a lot easier.
3, 2, 1.
Communication is a key to success, but for Jessica, it's also a way to lighten the mood, whether she's in the pool or on the bike.
People call it the grind. Okay, I have a couple of days where things are the grind. Maybe there's a week where something feels like a grind. But if I feel like I'm grinding all the time, I'm doing the wrong thing.
On the tandem bike, Jessica's volunteer cycling guide, Andrew Neal, gives vocal cues for when she should go,
3, 2, 1.
stop, and coast. But even with such a smooth system, mishaps still occur.
Just pedal.
Jessica always just laughs.
Anytime in the ride, she's going to say something funny. And the best part on any ride is when we're going down a hill and I'll hear from behind me, whee!
Whee! All right, up the hill we go.
As John and James can attest to, on any bike ride, training can feel like an uphill battle. Getting cold and wet in the rain is an occupational hazard, and sometimes you just gotta laugh.
You getting soaked?
Oh yeah. That's not good.
In the pool, it's difficult to laugh. But not impossible, as volunteer swim guide Carmen McNamara points out, especially when her and Jessica have a tether malfunction.
We haven't swum tethered in a while because there hasn't been open water to swim in because it's been cold. And so the first time we hit the wall, we got completely tangled up with who was supposed to be where. And it's just funny.
Coach Carolyn says it's music to her ears.
I've been on the other side where athletes lose that kind of spark and that joy for what they're doing. And most times they don't perform. So from that perspective, it's a win-win, right? It should be fun, and it's great that actually that enhances performance as well.
Triathlon is new to the Paralympic scene, and right now, athletes and guides are blazing a new trail. Unfortunately, they're a little short on folks trained to guide blind athletes.
Everyone thinks there's special training. If you show up, I tell you what to do, we go and do it. There's no point in dwelling on it, because if we do, then I'm really afraid you're gonna walk out that door.
James hopes to one day help develop a program to assist in the selection and training of triathlon guides, and here's why.
It's a big responsibility because you're someone's eyes, and so not only are you racing a triathlon, which is already anxiety-provoking, but now you are responsible for someone else's safety and making sure that they can race that race at a high level and to the best of their abilities.
Andrew agrees, it's a big responsibility.
Every once in a while I'll think, wow, she's on the back, trusting me, we're going 45 kilometers an hour, and she puts a lot of faith in everything I'm doing, so I take that responsibility pretty seriously.
Another thing for guides to remember, it's their job to remain in the shadows.
At the end of the day, we are a team, but it is John's name on the suit. He's the athlete. He's the one that's going to have the world ranking. You will not see my name in any of the record books, ever.
People who commit themselves to guiding are people that are there to help someone else achieve their dreams. You cannot be in it for your ego, because then you're in the wrong place.
Teams come in all shapes and sizes. So what makes the team strong?
I think the key to being a great triathlete team is
Trust. You need to want to win.
both parties respecting one another.
You need to be able to accept the things that you have no control over and maximize the things that you do have control over.
And appreciating where each person is coming from and their strengths and their weaknesses, and balancing those out for each other as much as possible.
There's always a risk when you try something new, but if you go and do it open-minded and if you're willing to communicate and give your best effort, chances are you're gonna succeed most of the time.
I can't imagine training for 3 sports at the same time. This exhausting test of human endurance is definitely not for everybody. Jessica and John are truly world-class athletes. After the break, we meet some people using sport in a much different way. Don't go anywhere.
Level Playing Field will return. Welcome back to Level Playing Field with Greg Westlake.
It's not debatable. We know the health benefits of sport and an active lifestyle are enormous. And that's exactly why retired para archer Alec Denise helped start Active Together, to give people with disabilities more opportunities to get moving.
Oh yeah.
Bocce ball, floor curling, axe throwing, archery, and many other recreational activities unite a community of active individuals. This important program was created with the help and involvement of retired Paralympic archer Alec Denise. Alec became paralyzed from the waist down just shy of his 30th birthday, after falling from a tree and suffering a spinal cord injury.
And that's how my new life started. When something like that traumatic accident happens and your whole life changes, you lose your independence, and that affects your self-esteem, your self-confidence. And I found that one of the really good ways to get back into that was through sport.
This passion eventually carried him to a long career as a Paralympic archer, where he competed in 5 games from 1994 to 2000. As a true believer in the power of sport, he later got involved with Active Together.
We provide opportunities for people with any kind of disability, whether it's a physical disability, intellectual disability, try out different recreational or physical activities and interact with people that have similar types of disabilities so they can learn from that and experience it and feel more comfortable.
Through the program, he connected with like-minded people in the Peterborough area.
And said, hey, I'm visually impaired. Can I come and try to throw axes?
Linda Todd was one of those people, and she was excited and driven to try new activities through Active Together. She truly values the connections she's made along the way.
I started as a participant and met some amazing people, Alec being one of them, but many, many others.
Axe throwing made Linda discover something important inside of herself: confidence.
It's really not that bad being visually impaired. I can do everything.
This newfound confidence encouraged Linda and Alec to continue with Active Together, even when funding ran out.
I'd come to love the program so much that we just approach businesses and I just phone them up and say, hey, this is who we are. We have no money. Please help. And Peterborough has been an extremely welcoming city.
Thanks to the community, the participants of Active Together prosper in so many ways.
The benefits of being involved in a physical activity, a huge increase in the quality of life. Heart disease is much higher, diabetes, all those types of chronic diseases are much higher proportion in the population of disabled. And it doesn't have to be, that's the point.
People who live with an inconvenience do suffer depression a lot more. Many people end up being very secluded and don't even know how to get out of the house and meet other people or feel embarrassed by what they're living with. So by getting a variety of people together that are dealing with different barriers and inconveniences, then you learn other people's stories.
Stories like Jason Johnston's.
Okay, my last three are gonna be perfectly centered. I fell into I would say like a massive depression. I didn't really want to go out with my friends, but getting out with Active Together really helps me with my confidence, and I love it. I'm going to be part of it until I can't be anymore.
Randy Morrow also learned a lot from the program.
I got a left hook. We all need each other, and that's probably the most important lesson, I guess, that I've learned is the importance of the human connection.
Oh, that would have been a nice tap for us.
And thanks to a local organization that made a sizable donation, more people will be able to make connections and get active together, just like they did.
That's huge. That will keep us going for 3 or 4 or 5 years maybe.
The idea is to get people to reach outside of their comfort level and do different things and realize that it really isn't that hard.
I think it's important for the able-bodied community to see people with disabilities being involved, being out there, because I think it changes perceptions and, the awareness that people with disability have lots of abilities, and we should be focusing on the ability rather than the disability.
Seems like a great group to be a part of. If you want to join them, you can find information on the Peterborough Council for Persons with Disabilities website at pcpd.ca. Or look for a similar organization in your community and get in the game. If you want to catch up on episodes of Level Playing Field, you can find them by visiting AMI.ca. I'm Greg Westlake. Thanks for watching.
Host Greg Westlake, producer Ted Cooper, segment producers Johanna Ryan, Manuel Grados Andrade, videographers Matthew McGurk, Sergio Vera Barahona, integrated described video specialist Simone Cupid, audio producer, composer, and engineer Mike Monson, graphics Andrew Antonello, Mike Smith, senior producer Michelle Dudas, president and CEO David Arrington, copyright 2020, Accessible Media Inc.